What is up, everybody? We are back with an episode of Bullish Top Stocks to Watch for the week and why. Before we get into it, as always, hey, just a few things. These are only my opinions. Do your own due diligence. Also, to realbullish.com. Go ahead and give us your email. Go give us an email, sending out a blog and sending out kind of notifications when shit like new episodes go up, new merch goes up, but also kind of like little blog posts here and there could be helpful. But also, yeah, the first 50 people that sign up, still don't have 50 people yet, but the first 50 people that sign up going to be doing a random drawing, giving away a couple of these bullish shirts. Also, yeah, you can find that. I'll drop the link here for the merch at the bottom, but also, yeah, realbullish.com has that link throughout the site. So go ahead, go buy some merch. I appreciate it. Also, hey, give us a sub here, thumbs up, give us a sub. Would really appreciate that as well. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. If not, oh well, but I have a few that I'm going to go into for this week. This week really kicks off kind of like the meat and potatoes of earnings season. I went through a lot of earnings. There wasn't a lot that I kind of like picked up. I mean, I'm sure a lot are going to bust out, but I have a few things that I look for specifically. One that really did catch my eye though was Google, and I missed playing Google last earnings, but I really wish I did. I would have gotten it, but the charts didn't kind of line up. I knew they were going to really exceed expectations, but the charts didn't line up for me. I think it's a little bit different this time, so it's worth me looking back into it. But anyways, Google has earnings coming up on 10/26 after market close. They're currently right now 12% under the average analyst price target on Yahoo Finance. And that's kind of that really good area for me. Anything like under 20 over 10 is really fun for me because there's a lot of meat on the bones that it shows that they're not in a sell-off mode, but they're still, under fair value prices. I would consider it this one. So yeah, 12% is a really good range to be under the average analyst price target, right? Also, so another reason why I like them, they're about 110% year over year. They have 109% year over year increase to the estimated EPS numbers. So that's always good when you show, anytime you get that 3-digit number and showing, hey, year over year, our estimated EPS is expected to increase by 3 digits. That's a really good sign. And over the last 12 quarters, they've meet or beat expectations 66% of the time. I want that number a little bit higher, so that is a little bit cautionary for me. But also over the last 6 quarters, they raised 67% the day after earnings. So earnings shows up the next day, 67% out of the last 6 quarters. So what is that? A year and a half, they actually raised the next day after earnings, right? So I want those numbers. No, those are a little bit shaky for me, but for me, it's Google. These are ones that you kind of you catch on pullbacks, which we will see it did, and you kind of get on there for those earning catalysts, in my opinion. And also they have a nice bottom channel support, and also it's Google. Like, I mean, it just makes sense. It's to me, looking at FAANG. FAANG is reporting this week. That's the best of the FAANG, and I've been wanting to get back into FAANG for a while. I just haven't had the opportunity because as you see with Alphabet, Google, they just rip, right? It started ripping in even let's say July 20, right? I mean, it just rips, and you have to kind of hold on and then kind of get them on pullbacks. And I think this is what it gives us an opportunity, gives on pullbacks. Because one thing that that people aren't talking about is Google is a play on a lot of different things, not just ads, not just searches, but they're taking a really big bite out of Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Service. So they're kind of their cloud play, right? They're taking a big bite out of that. And getting a lot of people going into that. So I think that's going to be very important here. But at the month level, hey, you see it kind of like in an upward channel. You do see, last month, September, taking a break, right, at this almost busting 3,000 level, and that's going to be monumental when it busts 3,000, right? And it kind of goes from there. You do see a red candle to the bottom of the channel, but you do find bottom of the channel support, which is important to me. A little bit easier to see at the week level. You see that channel kind of rising up like 226, right? Going back to the beginning of the year, that channel kind of starts, right? And you kind of see that impact there. But also, over the last few weeks, you do see some toppings here. It just doesn't want to cross 3,000 yet. You see some sell off, but it did catch at this lower channel as well. You have two things here. You have lower channel support here, and then you have this channel support at 26.75. Let's call it, right. So at the week level, still it's actually in a bit of of a decline, right. So trying to catch the bottom of that channel. You see RSI cooling off. RSI was kind of running hot for a few months, for like 6 months or so, RSI was running above 70. But for this one, it can do that, right? MACD is crossed, a few weeks ago to be bearish. So I still think that this is something that is in cool off mode, but something worth watching. And you see that again at the day level, right? You see that kind of that upward channel still over multiple time frames. You see that channel coming out. So it's definitely apparent there for me. You do see it cooling off, and almost like a few different tops here at that 29, 14, 15 level, right? Hopefully catches the bottom of channel support here, but also what I would be looking for is even lower support here where it's had, 3 or 4 touches at that 26.71 range. I'm kind of happy playing this at the bottom of the channel, and then if it dropped even lower, probably catching a little bit more there, right? But you do see, hey, it wants to sell off. RSI is pointing down, MACD is pointing down. So I do think we'll get, a chance to get it a little bit lower, before earnings comes out, because 10/28. So you do have, a few days before, yeah, we actually have a couple days before earnings, right? So I think you will see a little bit more of that consolidation here lower down, but still opportunity to play because the earnings are expected to be so good, and you finally get a chance to cool off and then get it at a better number. Another earnings play that I wanted to look at that I didn't actually look at until recently, and something that I love is Starbucks. For Starbucks, if I'll just bust it down for the day level, right? So Starbucks has earnings on 10/28 after market close. So I love after market close earnings because you get to play the pop at the end of the day and the beginning of the next day. Before market opens, it's a little bit harder because you really don't know. So after market close earnings, I love those. They're currently 13% under the average analyst price target on Yahoo Finance. So for me, again, anytime you get 20 or under, it has a lot of good meat on the bones, but still, it's kind of like still in that really fun area of, it's not selling off. It's just kind of cooling off, in my opinion, right? Anytime you get above 20%, it's like, hey, why is it 25% under average analyst price targets, and then you have to kind of look, I think, a little bit deeper to kind of figure out what the catalyst or what the underlying issue is there, right? So yeah, currently at 13% under the average analyst price targets, which I love. 233% year over year increase estimated for their EPS. Google was at 109, 110. This is 233% over this time last year's EPS earnings estimate, right? So that's anytime I say you see those 3 digits, you got to take a deeper look at it. And so over the last 12 quarters, they meet or exceed expectations 91% of the time, right? So there's 91% of the time over the last 12 quarters, it does what it's supposed to do or more, right? But this is the thing, over the last 6 quarters, they've only raised 17% of the time. What I think my kind of hypothesis is for that, and I kind of look into a little bit, is that Starbucks is one of those names. It's highly valued. So even though the earnings look great, I love it from an earnings perspective or upcoming earnings perspective and a chart perspective, which I will go into, but I do not like Starbucks as much from a valuation company percentage perspective. It's kind of just middling in terms of margin. It's middling in terms of debt. It's middling in terms of, margin. Yeah, I already said margin, but their price to earnings ratio, right? They're pretty like up in that higher tier for their cohort or their grouping. So like McDonald's, Chipotle, and shit, and Starbucks, right? Put them in that category. They're pretty high in their valuation, or they're pretty expensive as compared to that group, right? So even though from a financial perspective they're not the best, I think that it's a perfect time to look at Starbucks again. That's kind of my quantitative analysis, but my qualitative is every time I fucking go to Starbucks, that motherfucker's packed. You do have to take consideration, inflation and rising costs of workers and stuff, and that those things are going to persist till the end of the year, especially as we get to holiday seasons. But those are kind of things you got to take into consideration. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But I like Starbucks. I've been watching them for a while. I just never got in. But what I like about Starbucks is, as opposed to Google, which looks like it wants to sell off, almost Starbucks is the exact opposite in terms of me. So it did have an RSI that it cooled off from at the month level. It ran at 81 in August of last year. It cooled off since then, and right now it's trying to tread into that 70 area for RSI again. So RSI is going the right way. It's going up and to the right. MACD almost wants to pinch, but kind of round back up to be bullish, continue its bullish trajectory there. And honestly, at the month level, it's touching this 10 EMA at the month level, which I love. I hate it when it gets too far away from this line at the month level, because to me, it's just wave theory. It's going to come back down to that. But since we're playing with that here, I think it's a perfect opportunity at an area of significance. This area has been important going back to December of last year. This area that we're kind of at is 107. 107, 108 area, right? So I think it's going to still be area of significance now, right? So it's not rocket science. You just got to look at things, patterns in the past, and kind of project them into the future, and then have a plan if it doesn't work, right? It's not hard. But at the week level too, me, I like catching things as they're going to cross this 10 EMA at the week level. That shows that they're not too far. So if I would have caught it up here, I'd have been so pissed. I mean, still a good. I mean, Starbucks, it's a good investment for the long haul, but I just want my money to grow versus like having a lot of pain until it starts growing. And I think right now we're at that perfect time because you see at the week level, you almost have five bottoms here at this 110 area, right? Waiting to break out of this downward channel. You see this kind of connecting connecting these highs from 726 on. You do see a kind of descending resistance area, right? And as soon as it busts over that, which it looks like it wants to soon, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to try this for a good win here. You don't see any volume over average, but it's getting close. I think maybe it's just waiting for earnings to see what's going to happen. You do see RSI was cooling off, and right now it's in the perfect area to start repositioning to be bullish. On the RSI level, right? You see that kind of going back up. You want to see RSI doing this. You don't want to see it doing that. Same thing for MACD, right? Moving average convergence, divergence. It's about to be bullish. It looks like it wants to turn bullish as well. You see that kind of the angle for this blue line kind of going up over that yellow line is exactly what you want to see, right? So it's been in a bearish territory, right? But right now we're going to see hopefully it kind of make that movement with earnings as the catalyst. That's my hypothesis. Earnings going to be the catalyst to break it out of this downtrend, right? And what I like about this at the day level is you kind of see it. All these moving averages are starting to move in the directions you wanted to. It found support where it needs to find support. Honestly, at this line here, or this 200 EMA, it needed to find support here. If not, people are going to be fucked. But it did find support there, which I love. And then it's about to break over this channel. I think once you see this break over this channel, this downward descending resistance line here, you'll see kind of all that volume over average coming in. You'll see price start to move really, really heavy. I'm playing it maybe a little bit too soon. Usually for this one, since it only moves over the last 6 quarters, 17% of the time it's up. After the day after earnings, that shows that it doesn't move with earnings. But since this has been in such a downtrend, going back from 126, on 727 for the past 3 months, it's been in a downtrend. I think that this is a little bit different because it's in a correction territory, and now it's going to have earnings, hopefully as a catalyst, as long as it meets and beats, right? It needs to meet and beat, hopefully raise guidance. But I think the charts are showing it's primed to move, and to me, it was most likely going to move up, and that's what I see here. You do see. They called it the golden cross. It's when the slower moving averages, the faster moving averages kind of bump up above the slower moving averages. And that's what you see here. This line you see it bounce off this 200 EMA. And then you see this 10 EMA almost starting to go over this 50, right? So once this blue line gets over that yellow line, it's going to be super bullish in my opinion. And I think we're going to see that coming here because the chart's already kind of showing that it's going to go in that direction. Another one I wanted to look at, and these are kind of just other ones. I won't go as deep into these, but PayPal, what I love about PayPal, I've called this out, I think 3 or 4 times. I was kind of waiting for this moment. I've been watching PayPal for a while. I think there's a lot of great catalysts coming up. There was one big catalyst to the downside, and for me, a catalyst is up or down. This was a catalyst to the downside. They came out with news this week. There are talks to acquire pins, but for a stupid amount of money. So they're valuing pins right now. The Pinterest buyout would be $45 billion. That's a lot of fucking money. Valuing pins at basically $7 a share, $70 a share right now. I don't know what it's at, but it's not at $70 per share. So the market seems to go against it. I'm against it as well, just because, especially, and I think I just hypothesized that it's not going to happen the way that we think it's going to happen originally, because Pins had a really bad showing on their earnings. And people are kind of looking at, or Snap did, and people are looking at these advertising companies again and saying, I don't know if, or these social media companies and saying, I don't know, like coming up, it might be a lot harder because of, Apple changed this thing on their software that said, hey, do you want us to track you, right? Do you want us to pass your information on? A lot of people opting out of it, and it's hurting a lot of these advertising companies, a lot of these social media companies that really rely heavily on advertising like Pins. You see it in Snap, and I think we'll see more of the same this upcoming earnings. When you see Twitter report, you see Facebook report, I think you'll see more of that like hurting. Not as much for Google, like I said. That's why I'm kind of bullish on Google right now, because Google's has its own kind of thing that they do, right? They've already kind of known this was going to come down the pipe, so Google's a little bit ahead of the curve, which I'm not worried about them, which is why I'm kind of watching them even more. But anyways, so PayPal, if the news doesn't happen, I would expect this to go, I would expect to shoot back up to kind of where it was before. You see the news coming out here, about 10:20 ish. And then yeah, people just hated that, right? But I think there's a lot of great catalysts coming up for PayPal, right? They have their super app that was code complete a month ago, 2 months ago. That's going to start alpha beta testing to us, right? You're gonna be able to start stock trading on there apparently, right? Or that they're supposedly they're going to have a good earnings coming up. The earnings coming up is not going to be bad. I think it's going to be middling because they had this they were the sole provider of eBay's kind of payment processing that was already in the works to break that up. And I think you're going to see those headwinds coming up. You saw it last quarter on PayPal's earnings, and you're going to see it this quarter again. But after that's kind of cleared up, I think PayPal's going to be a big mover. So all of these dips I'm watching, especially this one. So as soon as I hear news that, or I see a day that, so it's still selling off, right? You still see kind of like a broadening formation here at the day level, right? And this is exactly what I was watching. I already played this once with success, and I'm waiting for one day that it's going to be like a 2 to the upside, and then I'm going to start playing this. Either going to be a 2 on the upside here, so like a smaller candle here. If we see a green candle, I'll probably buy it around here and then ride it up. Or if we see the news coming out that the pins acquisition is bullshit, which sometimes you don't hear that it's bullshit, it just doesn't happen. I'll also probably jump in really heavy for PayPal. So yeah, look out for that. If that pins news comes out and it's not going to happen or it's changing, I think you might see. I'm pretty confident you're going to see a swing to the upside. But also, I'm going to play this for like an inside 2 day or outside 2 day to say, hey, it's trying to kind of regain that footing, and I'm going to play it on these candles as well. So I think PayPal is going to be a really interesting one here pretty soon. The other one I wanted to go into was Nucor. I called out Nucor again. I called out Nucor for I think last week or something like that. Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. So if you want my overall bull thesis for Nucor, watch the last episode. But anyways, they had earnings on 10/21, right, before market opens, which I fucking hate. But anyways, I like Nucor for a few reasons, right? But anyways, Nucor had mixed earnings this past week. Revenue was up 109% year over year. 13.3 billion in the last quarter alone. That's a lot of fucking money. Up 109% for revenue. Gosh, it'd be their EPS. So their EPS missed by 14 cents, but it was up over 1,000% year over year. That's insane. We're looking at Google at 100. We're looking at Starbucks at 233 potentially. Nucor was 1,000% over their earnings per share same quarter year over year. That is amazing. That's the best quarter that they've ever done. And the CEO came out and said, we think that Q4 is going to meet or exceed even these numbers. So to me, you can extrapolate that. It's a better end of year guidance whole year for the company itself. So I think Nucor is going to have a really strong end of the year. But and also they have a new sheet mill plant coming, a $2.7 billion sheet mill plant in the Appalachian region that's going to support the auto industry in that area. It's going to come out, I believe, in the later part of the year, and it's going to have a reduced carbon footprint. It's like a whole new way to do sheet mill plants, right? It's an old company doing new things, and I think Nucor, it's the biggest. It's not in my opinion, the financial or metrically the best company in terms of valuation, debt, margin and stuff, but it's high up there, right? Also, we had that another reason why I'm watching Nucor. There's two reasons why I'm still watching it. One, because Nucor to me wasn't the day after play, so the day after it doesn't raise as much. But 7 days, if you look over the past 6 earnings, that 7th day after earnings, it's up 83% of the time. So this is the time to watch Nucor for me. Not at earnings, even though I did play it before earnings for like a 4 or 5%, about 4% increase, which was good for me because I start selling about 5%. But anyways, this one is a 7th day play to me because 83% of the time over the last 6 quarters 6 quarters that they've reported, it's actually up on that 7th day, not that first day after earnings, right? So this is the exact time to look at it. And the chart kind of shows that, what I'll go into. But also the second reason for this is that infrastructure bill. So it was at 3.5 originally. I think they brought it down to about 2 billion. And they're supposed to start voting on that again because they want to get it done before the end of the year for 2 reasons. There's this meeting in Glasgow where like a bunch of, UN and all these international, bodies go and talk about climate change and all this shit, which is very important. Don't get me wrong, but people are America's gonna want to show out and say, hey, we're doing our part, we're doing our thing, right? And also the highway funding is much needed. And I think it ends this month. But anyways, I think the Democrats are really lowering that bill is gonna make it more palatable for a lot of the holdout Democrats to pass this bill, even if it's just with Democratic support, right? Even though they decrease it by 2 billion, it's a steel play, it's an infrastructure play, right? So all these raw companies, basic materials, industrials, I think you're going to see catch a bid. But anyways, also what I liked about this Nucor and why I was watching is because it was a channel, right? I won't go too far into it. Look at the last episode for why I was looking at it. Man, it sure looks good in this video. Boom, boy. Anyways, bottom of channel support, that's exactly what you see here, right? So when earnings popped, I sold because it wasn't going to hold this area here. I wanted it to pop over this area here and hold it over, previous resistance. It didn't, but it found support at the bottom of the channel is exactly what you want to. And I'm fine kind of slow grinding this way all the way back up. We're 3 days after earnings and we haven't seen a huge sell-off. In fact, it's holding the bottom of this channel looking pretty bullish. If you look at RSI, it's picking up. If you look at MACD, it's still bullish. If you look at volume over average, it's still there, even though over the past 3 days, 2 days, the past 3 days, they had volume over average, volume over this yellow line, and 2 of those 3 days have been basically bullish, right? So I think those are all really good things. Hopefully, it keeps the bottom of this channel. You have two things here. You have channel support, and you have what is this? Vertical, horizontal support. I always forget left and right, vertical, horizontal. But anyways, I swear I'm not that much of an idiot. But I am. But also, it's holding that vertical support here and it's holding that channel support as well. Right? Or sorry, horizontal support and channel support here as well, which is really strong for me and why I'm really bullish on Nucor. The last one I'm going to go into is because so this is a stretch for me, but I liked it. So this is a play on shipping and shit like that. But anyways, I'll go over why I think this is an interesting one. Euroseas, it's a company. If you go to Seeking Alpha, which I look at every day religiously, I find something great on there. But Seeking Alpha, it's a premium service. You pay $30 a month, but it's so much information. Anyways, this company right here is the top of their quant rating, right? So they have a bunch of companies that are quantitative data that they pull together and say, hey, these are top companies. This is the top one. You will know that this is my second one for Seeking Alpha that I played. The first one was Grin. I gave you why Grin wasn't top for me, but it's getting real, and that might be another episode. It's getting really close to breaking out. I know why they called that one a top one, but also you could see in the chart that it wasn't going anywhere. This one's a little bit different. So they have earnings coming up next month. So look at Euroseas, ESEA. They have a nice channel support here, nice horizontal support as well. So I like it that it's at the bottom of the channel. I was making all-time highs. So when they report next month in November, their year-over-year increase is estimated to be about 1,200% year over year EPS increase. Wow, that is amazing. When you start seeing those four digits, that's when you're like, shit, they got some shit going on. Like I said, I'm really a little shaky on the Seeking Alpha top picks because they've had a few questions like Grin, but you could, if you looked at one, if you saw that and I didn't look at a chart, I'd be like, oh, great, they said this is the top play. I'm going to go into it. I looked into it. I could see why they were saying that, but also I saw that it was going to cool off and then maybe come back, which I think is pretty close to. I think that this ESEA is a nice play. It has bottom of channel support. Like I said, it has horizontal support as well. And it's in the earnings coming up estimated so that you always want to look for the next catalyst. You want to see a great story, you want to see a great company, you want to see a good catalyst. The catalyst coming up is going to be in November. They're going to report earnings, and those earnings are supposed to be fucking good for their EPS, right? 4-digit EPS increase. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'll probably take a closer look at this. I want to see it cool off closer to the bottom of this channel. So it is trying to break out. I want to see it cool off a little bit, which I think you might get because even like this, so RSI is cooling off, but MACD is getting pretty close to being bullish. So when this thing turns bullish again, watch the fuck out. That's exactly what I'm going to wait for. I'm waiting for a cool off to the bottom of this channel. Hopefully we find it, somewhere close to this $29-$30 range. But once MACD starts, this turns green like this, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. All right, everyone have a great week. Everyone, trick or treat safely. All of pick a good costume, and everyone have a good one. Peace.